Hello, everyone, and welcome to the QT2 Systems, My Greatest Moment podcast series. My name is Reem Jishi. I'm the content director for QT2, and today I'd like to welcome our featured athlete, Audrey Turner. And Audrey is special because not only is she an athlete of QT2 Systems, but she's also one of my coach clients. So I'm very excited to have her here today. Welcome, Audrey.
Thank you, Reem.
All right, so we are going to get to your race in 2022, but I would like to back you up and just talk to you about when you entered the world of endurance sports. When was your first triathlon?
The first triathlon I did was 2001. I'm a musician and a music teacher, and I never really been an athlete. So after a cancer diagnosis in 1994, I started to exercise regularly and I got into running. Um, and at some point around 2000, I thought cross training would be a good idea. So I knew how to swim and I'd ridden a bike probably years before that. So I decided to give it a try.
Do you remember what your first race was?
Sure, it was the very first year that they held the Cazenovia sprint triathlon.
Okay,
I think it was 1999 or no, I'm sorry, it was 2001.
2001. So your first race, I know that race is pretty hilly, so that was a good one to pick to start. Okay, so what was your experience?
I loved it. I The first 5 years I did that race, I had to walk. There's one hill I had to walk it for the first 5 years. um, but I think the experience of swim, bike, run was so unique to me. I just loved it.
Okay, so you just kept on coming and doing triathlons over the years. And um, did you like settle in on a certain kind of distance or race, or did you just do?
I think for me, the sprint only because just doing that race was all encompassing for me, just to get through those distances. And I only did one or two a year, and I always used to say I had to train just during the summers because my years were so busy. But at some point, I tried a longer distance, an Olympic distance, and then 2010, I decided I'd try the half Ironman distance, mainly because there was one being held in Syracuse. And that was the first year I think you were in Syracuse.
Yeah.
And that was the first time that we met. There was some charity ride going on, uh, a bicycle ride, and I was the last person in, and I met you, and I knew you were going to be coaching, and I think I said something to the effect that, well, you're going to be working with me, and you're going to have your work cut out for you.
Well, it's been, wow, more than 10 years now. That I don't know. Time goes by so quickly sometimes. So, all right. So you did the half Ironman. You kept participating. I mean, you show up. That much I know about you. You show up, you get your workouts done. So your greatest moment race was an Aquabike race, right? Why don't you tell everyone what that race was? And then I'm going to back you up a little to get you there, but just so we know, people know what your
So
race
that race was at Worlds this past August in Slovakia, and it was the long course Aquabike.
was. So that was an ITU race, right? So you were racing with representing Team USA at that
Yes,
race.
yes.
All right. So you have done triathlons over the years. This was an Aquabike. So what had you kind of go from triathlon to Aquabike?
Well, first of all, any of the longer distance races I'd ever done, I sort of would break down in terms of having an injury. And at some point, I think it was 2019, even with the sprint distance, I was having issues with piriformis, foot issues. I wasn't able to run. And one of my main goals in participating in races is to be fit and to be active. And I felt like if the race was breaking me down to the point where I couldn't be active, maybe I should rethink things. And it was you that said to me, well, why don't you try the aqua bike? And I thought that was a great idea. I didn't even know they existed. And and then the other part of that was the distance, was the half Ironman distance, and I was worried about my endurance and getting through it without breaking myself. But I think working with a coach makes all the difference in that you are able to structure the workouts and build me gradually up to that point so that I'm not injured going into a race, and coming out of a race I'm not injured either. Because for me the most important thing is to be able to get up every day and to move and be active and to do what I want to do.
Mhm. So when you, I mean, if I'm remembering our conversation back to 2019, once you settled on Aquabike, it pretty quickly went to the, well, what do you think of trying to qualify for the World Championships, right? I mean, it went.
Right, that was not on my radar. I'm one of these people that my goal is to get to the starting line and hopefully the finish line.
Uh-huh. So when your coach said, well, what about the World Championships? You said,
Oh yeah, sure. Well, I've known people that have gone, and I'm thinking I'm not in that category by far. Um, but I do love setting goals, and I do love being able to break down endeavor into smaller parts that you can achieve, and then building it up to doing um, even the national qualifier. Even just doing Miami Man was a thrill for me. Worlds was a whole nother level.
so Miami Man, so this was in 2019, Miami Man at that year was the USA Triathlon
Yes,
National Championships, which was the qualifier for what should have been the 2020,
yes.
correct? All right, so talk about your experience at Miami Man in 2019.
Well, it was flat, and as you know, I'm in central New York where there's no such thing as a flat ride. So I thought that would be great because I'm not a great hill climber, and flat would be good. But one thing about not having to climb a hill is you don't get to go down the other side either. So that presented a challenge. And the wind also presented a challenge for me. I didn't have a tri bike at the time. I was doing the race on my road bike, and I felt like the race sort of beat me up, chewed me up and spit me out by the end. It was really kind of a slog for, I'd say, at least the last 10, 15 miles. It was all I could do just to keep going to get to the finish line.
But you got to the finish line.
Did.
And if I'm remembering correctly, at the time you didn't instantaneously earn your world slot, but you got one through the roll down process, right? And then, so what happened next? Now all of a sudden you have.
So January 2020, I get the email saying it's rolled down. There's a spot open for you if you'd like to be a member of Team USA and go to Worlds. And wow, yes, I would like to do that.
Mhm.
And then I looked at the race. I believe the race distance at Worlds that year was 112.
It was longer. Yeah,
It
that
was
year was
definitely longer, at least 76. And I looked at the timeline and I thought about what I would need to do to be ready. And looking at those distances and knowing how beat up I felt at the end of Miami Man, I knew I wanted to do it, but I knew that I needed more preparation and I needed more time. So I very sadly, I just, yes, I deferred. Um, and I decided I would really focus on trying to re-qualify the next year to go the following year to Worlds.
Okay. So you went back, made that commitment knowing it was, you were stretching out your goal, and it ended up stretching out longer than planned because that's what happened that year. So ultimately though, you did all the training, and what was the race, your qualifying race that you ended up doing?
Qualifying race was last year, the Tough Man race at Stony Point, New York. It was the end of September. And quite the opposite from Miami. It was a lot of climbing, a lot of elevation. So I did everything I could last year when races were reinstituted to find hills and get involved with doing races that had hills in them
Mhm.
and trying to do as much climbing as possible. And as you said, if you do lots of hills and just decide that you do like them and you can do them, then they're not as bad. So,
It is definitely a mindset. When I went from I don't want to climb to I love to climb, I love to climb. Eventually I started believing it, say it
yeah.
enough.
I
Yeah,
think it was you said something, I think I can, I think I can.
right. Right.
And yes, I can, and yes, I can.
And yes, you can. And you ended up having a really strong race at
It
Top
was
Man.
a wonderful season altogether. I mean, I did like 4 races. That was my culminating race, and I just felt so well prepared for each one. And each one I felt I had my skills improved a little bit. I had gotten a tri bike, um, and it was my first year of racing with that bike, and that definitely made a big difference, and it was very helpful. And I just enjoyed every part of the training as well as the races. I think that we had decided that for me personally, instead of the 3 week build and the 1 week of recover, we went to 2 weeks, 1 week, and it helped me to keep from breaking down from having injuries that I couldn't get over. So all those little things of being coached that really add up, I think, to making a big difference and starting to see improvement before breaking down. Because always the big question is how much do you push through injuries? How much pain do you want to endure or can you endure and keep going? And sometimes the answer is that recovery is as important a part of your training as anything, and taking that seriously. Also, I think in terms of training, getting down to more basics of rolling after training or a workout. I think part of the issue with COVID was not being able to do classes at the local Y where I did my strength work. So all of a sudden I was on my own, and so I did start to do more rolling, and I found that very helpful. And also, then you were coaching me through my strength sessions, and the consistency of those workouts and the fact that those did build in intensity every couple of weeks and then pull back a little bit also, I think, helped a great deal in terms of getting to those starting lines and feeling really physically prepared and ready.
Good. Coaching works.
Coaching, yes.
All right. So you at Tough Man,
Mhm.
you raced very well. You got a spot. Did you think about it this time?
Oh, I didn't have to think about it. I was going.
Right. Yeah.
Definitely going.
Okay. So let's fast forward now. Let's get to your qualifying race. So one of the cool things as an athlete who's raced for Team USA before, one of the first moment that my uniform showed up in the mail was like, oh my gosh, like it was really real. So what was your, like when you got that Team USA kit?
It
I,
took a while because first of all, it took a while to announce where the multi-sport championships would be. They were saying it would be someplace in Europe, probably sometime in June. We didn't hear until mid-March that it would be in Slovakia, and it was going to be in mid-August. Um, as soon as those uniforms came through, it took a while because once again, supply chain, and there were issues getting it. But yes, when it came, it seemed a little unreal, um, that it was really going to happen. Uh, that whole question of, well, do you want to go to Slovakia? And it was like, yeah, I do. Despite everything that was going on in that area of the world, yeah, I did want to go. So the uniform was part of it. I think learning to just some basic bike mechanics, because there were a lot of questions being the first time going to Worlds, the first time going overseas, and with my bike, how to transport it, learning some basic bike skills of changing a tire, basic taking it apart. All those questions of travel and race were big for me. And so talking to people who had already done it, um, it became part of my training in a way. I had a great bike mechanic who really spent a lot of time with me and was very good at teaching, not just saying and showing, but making me do it and redo it and redo it, do it. That gave me a little more confidence that I could travel with my bike and do a race overseas. So
Yeah.
that was an exciting part as well. It was just another component as well as, your biking and swimming to get ready for the race.
Yeah, sure. Because when you get there, you didn't have the same options of getting your bike transported for you. You had to bring it
Right.
with
I think
you.
it was tri-bike transport that people have used in the past, but that wasn't available for some of these races.
Yeah. All right. So you get to Slovakia. Tell me about sort of the lead up to the race, the days before.
Right. It was a great lead up because I was there on a Tuesday, the race was on a Sunday, plenty of time to, get the bike put together. Team USA was great in terms of, the bike mechanic, the team massage. Everyone was awesome, Tim and Hans, and putting time into making sure that everyone was comfortable and had a good experience. It was great to get in those practice rides. There was a wonderful bike trail along the Danube, which I took advantage of, that was peaceful and quiet, and I didn't have to worry about getting lost in a little town or something where I didn't speak the language. So those training rides were great. We had a swim familiarization on the Friday before the race in the Danube. And as a musician, how could you not want to swim in the Danube? So that was great. It was sunny. It was 97 degrees. It was a busy week in terms of getting everything done. Um, the athlete meetings just to go over the race. It was the most complex race I've done in terms of uh, just the transition area, getting to and from the transition area. It was different in that we were required as Aquabike participants to finish transition to and run to the finish line. So that presented a little panic for some people. I hadn't even taken running shoes. And I forgot it was over a half a mile, I think, to get from transition to the finish line. So it wasn't any short little thing. There was a little running involved there. Um, and it was over many surfaces, so barefoot was out of the question. Um, so there was that. But it was a great week, and it was a great week to meet other Team USA people. I want to say the women from Team USA over 60, we bonded. They had, it seemed like the other women had done this race several times. They'd been to Worlds, so they were very helpful to me and just took me under their wing and gave me a lot of advice. And there was a lot of talk about how to age and maintain health and keep doing what you love to do and be healthy. And I think that their focus was very much that. And there was a lot of, great conversation on how we do that, things that we have to overcome, osteoporosis or whatever. As we get older, there's always a list of things that we try to, have to work through and work around in order to keep doing what we love to do. So it was a great lead up. There were professional races. On Saturday, we got to watch. There was the aquathlon on Thursday, the age group championships that we got to watch. So it was really good to be able to see the other athletes in the days leading up to our race. I think that gave me a little bit more confidence, just being more familiar with the race course in general. Um, so that was all good. It was a very exciting lead up, but I got to tell you, by check-in on Saturday, I was ready. It was like, let's just get on with this now. Let's get the race going.
All right. So let's talk about that. So race warning, did you have an approach going into the race, like a strategy of what you wanted to accomplish at the race, how you were going to tackle it?
Well, I will say it had been in the upper 90s all week, and the weather changed that Saturday night. So Sunday morning presented much cooler temperatures, which was a relief, but the wind kicked in. So we had wind of like 25 miles an hour, gusting up to 30. So the Danube had a whole different personality Sunday morning from what I had practiced in. So I think, what I had thought of as what time I had wanted to do the swim in, it became a whole different ball game at that point. So yeah, um, I wanted to enjoy my race, and I had certain times in mind, but as I said, I had to sort of maybe alter those a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, the swim was one of the roughest swims I had ever done, and it was a mass start for the wave, and I think I went out too fast, so there was a moment of panic, and I couldn't breathe, and so I just had to sort of stop and tread water. I had seen some people pulled out of the water in earlier waves that day, and so I just sort of had to collect myself. And once again, I think some of the best advice you had given me years before was you have to run your own race. And at that moment, I had to find my pace and my rhythm in that particular rough water. So once I was able to do that, that was very helpful. The the first half of that swim was against the current, and that morning I had been thinking the second half of that swim was just going to be a lot of fun because we'd just be blown back in. But the actual case was the swells were so high it was hard to see the buoys, um, and you had to sight constantly because you were being blown off course. So
Mhm.
you had to be very careful with that. And then, of course, the bike ride was a whole nother ball game. I had some issues with my bike right at the very beginning. The back tire had seized up, and so I had to get off and sort of do a little troubleshooting and figure out what was going on with that and get that fixed. And but once I got back on that bike, oh my goodness, it was a tailwind for the first half, so that was a ton of fun. And I have to say, biking through all these little villages of Slovakia where all of the people came out, and they had to be out there for hours. It was a long race, but they were no less enthusiastic for these later waves of the race than they probably were at the beginning. So that was very much delightful to sort of see all the people coming out to cheer us on. And then as I knew you got to the midway point and you're going to turn around, and it reminded me of Miami because having to sort of deal with the wind and fight against the wind, but I was ready for that. So I just put my head down. I started to sing song. I'm a musician, so I just started to go through just different tunes to keep my pace up and um, keep going. And yeah, it was fun. And of course, getting to the end and being able to run to the finish line. And Team USA was there at the finish to hand out little flags before we got to the finish line. It was very emotional. I just tear up thinking about it. Getting to that finish line was great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a whole different feeling when you're wearing Team USA gear. You're there representing your country, and that's exciting, and you see people of, like, all the different countries on the course. It's a whole different feeling
Very
to
much from all over the world, and that was a really for me a highlight was to be able to see all those people from so many different countries and all different ages. Being the age group championships, it's very inspiring to see these older age groups and the joy that those older athletes have in participating in these races. it's an inspiration, I think, for all of us to want to be able to do that as we age as well.
So you finished, you had, the race wasn't as you had planned it in ways, because Mother Nature just does that, but you rolled with it. You did really well. You finished it. And then you got a little pleasant surprise when you were done, right?
Yes, once again, that was certainly not, I hadn't planned for that.
So what was the surprise? Tell us.
I well, I finished, and I I got a text from my travel agent, Deepak Patel, saying, "Congratulations, Audrey, for your podium finish for third place and a bronze medal." And I said, "What? Are you sure? Like, where did you see this? I don't see this." So he took a screenshot and sent it to me. Um, so that was definitely the frosting on top of the cake, because I had not planned for that.
Yeah.
And once again, it was so emotional. And the three top women for our age group were all Team USA. And we had all become such fast friends over the previous 4 days. And so we lined up at the award ceremony, and it was just very special, um, to be able to have that moment in time.
It's just, I mean, better, right? I think I remember asking you after, was it what you expected it to be? And
Yes.
your
all,
response was
all that and more.
all that and more.
All
I
that
mean,
and more.
an amazing, just an amazing journey, and to walk out of that with a bronze medal.
Yeah, yes, I don't have words for it. To be able to be a member of Team USA and compete at Worlds, that to me was something I'll keep with me forever. Absolutely. And then to medal on top of it. Yeah, there are no words.
Yeah. So this series was about achieving things you never thought possible.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think your story fits that really well.
No, thank you. Yeah, to do those distances from someone who had never really run a mile in her life until her 40s. Yeah.
Yeah. It's exciting. I know you're not done. Now the question is what the next adventure is, but this one gets to settle in for a long time.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Audrey, for sharing your story. And just, I lived it with you, but you still
you
give me goosebumps hearing it, and just
every step of the way, Reem, and I
walking-
can't thank you
walking
enough,
through.
because I do think it makes all the difference in the world to have someone who can guide you to that finish point and get you there step by step, when you don't have the experience of having grown up as an athlete and racing something that's a little foreign to me. um, Having a coach has been absolutely a game changer.
Yeah, you did the work, though. You did it all yourself. So thank you for having the trust in me to get you there.
Well, thank you, Reem. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, we will wrap it up for today. Thank you again, and excited to continue your journeys.
Absolutely.
Whatever's next.
Okay, talk, Reem.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.